The three P's of happiness are pursue, passion, and purpose. And I find that when we can look at happiness that way, we can be more intentional on how we serve our sense of self-love and self-respect. So whenever we can make the commitment to choose to pursue what choices truly inspire and nourish us today, we live for the now. And that's exactly what healthy boundaries support you in preserving and protecting, is creating sustainability in what you do want to experience for yourself. So really having a strong foundation of boundaries will help you move past the fear where you feel stuck or where you're feeling limited, because you can allow yourself to refocus through choosing inspired action. So when you can refocus to choosing the inspired action, you're going to be more willing to start to surrender to the things that don't necessarily deserve your attention, or the perfectionism control patterns, or the procrastination, fear, doubts, worries, all of the different variations that can keep us tied in limitations. So choosing to surrender to the inspired action allows you to redefine the story of how you show up for yourself. I personally feel that boundaries offer a chance to stand in the root of what your truest joy's truth is. Boundaries look like honoring your yes or your no, and they can change on a moment by moment, day by day, environment to relationship experience. So it's important at the same time when you are establishing a relationship with boundaries, so that you can truly serve yourself in a way of love and respect and intention. Most importantly, you get to also identify, what are my non-negotiables? What are those things that I'm not willing to compromise on? Because let's just be real, life is also about adapting and flowing and being flexible and not rigid. So boundaries are this fine dance between polarity. And a boundary can feel triggered or ruptured when we get rubbed up against. When two barriers cross in together, it creates friction and conflict. That's typically when we experience our boundaries being crossed. And at the same time, no two people are going to have the same boundaries. No two people are going to have the same three P's of happiness. So when we can accept that we are all always giving our best, even if there are some relationships that or patterns that we hold towards ourselves that maybe have more judgments, can we aim to make a positive choice that aligns moving forward? So it's not necessarily meaning that we're always going to look and do things perfect when it is about preserving and protecting our boundaries. We kind of need to go through some of those turbulent areas in life, especially the moments where we're getting rubbed up and polished against. That's where we get to really activate that diamond heart-like body and to really stand in the truest choice of our heart's truth, which might look like needing to speak up, step down, not need to have a last word, be firm or assertive, be encouraging and reaffirming to yourself, right? And kind of really stepping into your own inner motivator versus justifying and making the excuses that hold you back. So it's not about like trying to do this boundary thing perfect. It's about just having the focus to re-arrive at, am I really doing the thing that is most supportive to taking personal responsibility for myself? When we can start to come from that place, you're going to find yourself experiencing way less burnout, and you're going to also experience a lot more acceptance. So know that boundaries are meant to get rubbed up against at times for you to really redefine that layer, that foundational piece. So when you're getting triggered, you can use the courage and the discipline that you need to either be honest to yourself or to be honest in a relationship with another person. So there's a lot of courage and vulnerability that comes with really sustaining your boundaries. Boundaries hold it together. They hold things together. So you get to celebrate the milestones and acknowledge yourself where you are consistent. Residual consistency always pays off. So when you can always tune your focus back towards your boundaries and choose to show up from that place of commitment and devotion and discipline to the structure, you'll find yourself delegating your time more wisely. You're not going to just be giving your time away to not being able to honor a boundary for yourself. I feel like we live in a say yes culture, and it's okay to also say no at times. So sometimes saying no to another person is going to look like saying yes to yourself instead. So kind of always remember the direction that your choices take you, especially around your boundaries, because you are going to be able to learn, you're going to be able to need to learn how to discern, when do I get to adapt and flow while still preserving and protecting my own energy as well at the same time. Because we don't want to just be in all work, no play, hyper focus mode in life. And then we also don't want to be in all play and no discipline and routine in life. So this is where that's your fine dance to establish the relationship that you get to experience within yourself. And boundaries get to create a safe space for you to express that safety. Now, it can be a little bit different having the dynamic dance with boundaries, especially with older relationships versus like new friendships. They're going to meet you at the love and the respect that you're holding yourself at today. That doesn't necessarily mean that your old relationships are going to see that instantly, right? It's going to take some time for things like that to catch up. So, you very well may ruffle some feathers around boundaries. And I'm sure there's times in your life where you feel ruffled by someone else asserting their own boundaries. But the more that you can respect your own boundaries, you're not going to take it as personal when someone else honors and respects their own boundaries. You're going to be able to step away in those types of moments and not need to have the last word, and respect that silence is golden, and to be able to have a deeper layer of acceptance that's going to reflect out in everywhere in your life. So boundaries really, I find personally, allow you to hold yourself with compassion and grace. And that allows you to do the thing that ultimately creates a relationship that's focused on acceptance with yourself. So move through all the feels, move through all the emotions, allow yourself to see that happiness isn't always about rainbows and sunshines, that sometimes choosing the boundary might feel really uncomfortable. There may be a lot of resistance to it. It might feel like turmoil in a storm, but there is a silver lining on the other side of that. So when you can just find contentment in the midst of pursuing those 3 P's of happiness, there's going to be less charge around having a healthy relationship with boundaries. And the thing is you don't want to be so strict with yourself either, because if there is no neutrality and there's only black or white, only work or play, eventually you're going to either self-sabotage, or that inner rebel is going to come out and say, I don't want to do anything, right? That inner teen is going to press up against you, and you're going to maybe find yourself procrastinating a bit more or feeling depleted and burnt out. So you do want to be able to find a fun dance in asserting your own boundaries. So if you're always someone who says no, try to lean in to what a yes feels like. If you're someone who always says yes, practice a no. If you're someone that always needs to step forward, right, and be like projecting all the time, really, really loud, practice stepping back. If you're someone that's more withdrawn and quiet and more of the observer, practice stepping in. So, and that might even be something that you can take a moment to even reflect on, and like, am I always like leading and asserting myself? Or am I always withdrawn and kind of just like observing and just like in that introspection space? Start to encourage yourself to do the thing that is more uncomfortable around holding your boundaries with grace and compassion. Boundaries are a great way to create a no excuse policy with yourself. And now that we have time blocked and we've identified core values and you've gotten really clear in the things that do serve you and what you would like to pursue and focus on, that's where your boundaries are going to sustain that. The boundaries are what's going to help hold it all together so that you don't need to feel that you need to keep it all together. They're a system that are there to support you safely in affirming what your self-expression looks like moment by moment. Again, right? Really standing in the core root of your heart's truest joys. There's a bittersweet process. We can't experience the fullness of joy without experiencing the fullness of sadness. So again, finding the contentment regardless of the external. And when you know that you can hone in and make those choices from delegating yourself from a place of pursuing intention, pursuing what it is that you want to give your energy to, it all works out in the end. So this is the time where you get to really stand grounded in your own inner strength so that you can activate your ability to be solution focused. Sometimes we can feel like we're more of a victim to life. And especially when we're not feeling that our boundaries aren't being respected or valued or appreciated, that victim mindset is not going to find a solution forward. It will just make life more challenging, and you're going to feel like you're in a tug of war to keep reasserting your boundaries. So you very well may need to really step into that inner strength and get honest about the mindset that you even give your boundaries and the way that you even feel that you can support and preserve and protect and show up for yourself efficiently. So boundaries really help you have better optimization. They give you more productivity so that you're not giving your time away either to doing the things that maybe bring you pleasure, but they aren't serving your purpose, or you're giving your time away to trying to make everybody else happy that you forget to pursue what makes you happy. So your boundaries really allow you to turn inward and to hold yourself to a higher standard. They're not what you give other people. Yes, you do share and express them to another, but you're not giving that to them. You're making the conscious decision to give yourself that choice to choose that decision to either stand firmly or speak up. So your boundaries can have some grace to it. They don't need to be these harsh things to where you draw the line in the sand. You can have fun with your boundaries. You can see that your boundaries are there to hold you with a light heart. You don't need to take them so seriously. So this comes back to like, does it need to look perfect? Like, for instance, today I had some time. I switched my schedule around. I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to go to the gym. Yeah. Would I like to have done an hour? Of course. But I established the boundary that I wanted to do some of my morning routine first and make sure that I had a light breakfast before walking out the door. And instead I did a 40-minute workout. It was fine. It didn't need to be all or nothing, or I didn't need to be hard on myself because I got out of the house a little bit slower. I established the boundary that this was what I was going to do this week. I showed up and I did it and I gave it my best. There's not any dialogue of like, oh, I didn't do it good enough. I established the boundary of what I was going to commit to, and I'm committing to it. And I'm accepting that whatever way that it takes shape this week, that it's enough. So every time that you do assert your boundaries and maybe there feels like there's an edge there, you're enough. You're enough to do that thing that you desire to do, and you're allowed to be seen in whatever self-expression you want to be seen in. So allow your boundaries to hold you in that you are enough, that you don't need to please everybody and show up for everybody, and you don't need to tend to everybody else or handle the to-do list like Superwoman this week if there's something else that actually is really speaking very truly and clearly through you. So you get to honor and trust your intuition in those moments of when you do get to adapt and flow and preserve and protect your overall well-being, because that's what boundaries are there for, is to support your overall mental health and well-being. So, you don't need to demand yourself from a place of respecting your boundaries. Can you keep a light heart around your boundaries? Can you put simple systems in place that allow you to remember the why of your boundaries, to choose love, acceptance, to value and appreciate and respect yourself? Those aren't things that we need to take so seriously. We get to feel inspired and empowered to make those choices to choose that. Then we're going to feel more uplifted and motivated in taking those aligned action steps. Because there are times in the journey where we are going to feel a little tired and like we've walked 1,000 steps and we're like, wait, we still have to walk like 1,000 more steps. There are going to be moments where we want to retreat and defeat. But the boundaries will allow you to hold yourself to that higher standard, to persevere and come out on the other end more resilient. So boundaries are a really, really great thing to get in a relationship with. I think that if you can deepen even more onto your list of boundaries throughout your life, they're always changing and fluctuating. Life is always presenting experiences for us to even recreate and reestablish new boundaries that maybe feel more authentic today. So just kind of know what you need so that you never give that up. Only you know what you need. No one is going to know what you need but yourself, which means if you can't express what you need to yourself, you are never going to be able to express that to another person. But yet we assume that everybody should know what we need. And that when things don't look to the way that we wanted it to or expected it to, well, then how come they didn't know that? Well, you get to know what you need. And it's really about sitting down with dissecting those 3 P's of happiness, like making that a journal prompt: pursue, passion, purpose. When we come from these places, we're always coming from a deep act of inspiration, and love is always the guiding force behind all acts of inspiration. So you do need to maybe pause at times to assert your boundaries in a way that is also loving and kind. Not just kind of going off on a whim and like demanding these boundaries to work right here and now, but it's like knowing what you need in each moment so that you can establish that container to be held in a way that is beneficial to yourself. So the mindset, I'm going to lastly leave you with, do you choose an abundant mindset or do you choose the victim mindset? When it's time to stand in a boundary and to stand in a truth, what kind of charge do you give it? So start to be able to step back and really notice it so that you can move forward free of the past restrictions, free of the old experiences that the ego is holding on to that kind of keeps us stuck in fear of even being able to stand in our own boundaries. Everything you want is always on the other side of the fear. So you get to celebrate all the milestones that you experience along the way.